everyone, and welcome to Zest to Zen with me, Shel, the podcast that will take you on a journey from the hustle to the harmony, fueling your passion whilst finding your peace. Today is an absolute privilege to welcome Joel White, the founder of Rewired For Men, Counsellor, EMDR specialist, and Master NLP practitioner. Joel empowers men over 30 to rewire their unconscious beliefs around money, work, and relationships, shifting patterns that hold them back without reliving the past. Ooh, I'd love to hear more about that. Through his grounded, straight-talking approach, Joel helps men reclaim purpose, emotional freedom, and resilience, guiding them to step off the running machine and move forward with strength and clarity. I am super excited for you to meet him, and I know he's going to help us with rewiring so many beliefs that change the course of particularly a man's life, which is super important. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I really appreciate it, Shel. Fantastic introduction there. It's really exciting as well to hear people read back what you do from that perspective. You know, that only empowers me more on the journey of why I do what I do. So yeah, I appreciate it. It's great to be here today, as they say.
You're so welcome. And honestly, I love hearing that, because I think it's super important that, you know, sometimes we're so in it and doing that we sometimes forget actually how much impact and all we've created, which is really important. So I'm happy that I was able to reflect a little bit of that back to you. I know you do probably way much more. Like, I know, as we talked about, you have your own podcast, which we will put in the description for everyone to also engage with. So with that in mind, for people that are, you know, I reeled off like EMDR and NLP. First of all, talking about EMDR, what is that? Where did that come from? What inspired you to go down that route?
I think really for me, I guess that's further along on the journey. More NLP was the start of the journey for me.
Yeah.
And how I ended up moving into the field, why I do what I do, was going through my own mental health concerns, if you want to call it that way, which brought me back to the UK. So I used to work abroad as a teacher. I was teaching in China and Thailand for about 6 years, to be honest. So when I came back to the UK, and then obviously depending where people live in the world who are listening to this, in the UK we have a national health service called the NHS, and it does the best it can do. Yeah. It's not the best thing in the world, but it tries its best. And for me, when I was basically really struggling with my mental health, I accessed the support, and it wasn't great. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think what I cottoned on very quickly is the only person who could help me get through what I was going through was myself. Mm-hmm. And when I looked into the finances of things, I couldn't afford private support, but going down trauma therapists or whatever it is. I thought, well, you know what? I'll learn about it. And that's sort of where NLP came in. NLP is very much focused on understanding the why. A lot of the time in the UK, when you speak to people, they go, oh, you're depressed, or you're anxious, or you're traumatized. But very rarely will anybody take the time to explain why and what goes on in the head and how things can be changed. Even today, there's still a culture for quite a lot of individuals, particularly men, and which I've heard quite a few times with some of the men's stuff that I do. Oh, well, I'll always be traumatized, or always be depressed, or always be...
Yeah, the words that people use.
And it's not the case. And language itself is very powerful anyway.
Yeah.
So that was my first insight, really. And that helped to pretty much put me back on a trajectory of going, well, where my passion really lies now is not in teaching, it's in mental health and well-being. And that's where the journey took me into counselling, and then further along from there, really. Where EMDR comes in, it's very specifically designed to work with people who've gone through trauma, and doing it in a unconscious way. Because by that point, I started to realise a lot of how we operate on a day-to-day basis is not conscious. We think it is, but it's not. What actually rules the show is the unconscious mind in the background, and a lot of people are not even aware that is the case. And if they are, they don't know how to tap into that to basically change things, rewire things, whatever phrase you want to use it. So that's kind of where the EMDR came in, was working with that, because it is a very powerful way of working in helping people deal with that. Because again, that gap in the middle between NLP and EMDR for me, I became a qualified counsellor. And counselling, and this is not knocking counselling, there's a lot of people out there who are counsellors, but it will only take you so far. There's only so much talking you can do about something. It doesn't necessarily get to the root cause of what took you there in the first place, as an example. And sometimes it can't always be helpful, particularly for men who are quite emotionally averse, starting to talk about your emotions, because it'll just trigger you and you'll shut down. So that was another shift why EMDR came into the toolkit, really. And I guess, what I realized by that point, when I qualified as an EMDR practitioner, I had all this toolkit, and it was like, okay. And then, as usual, life moves you in certain ways. And I guess it was making that jump from full-time employment, as it was in June 22, to go, okay, I want to work, self-employed, got my toolkit, let's have a play with my tools, basically, is the way I can put it. And I guess off the back of that is what you see now, which started at the start of this year, Rewired For Men, hence being aimed at men. So that gives you a potted history of why I do what I do. Excuse me.
Amazing. Wow. And thank you so much for being so open and honest about, and I know it's not always the case, but often it does become that usual thing of, it's often something we've gone through ourselves that inspire us to almost be like, enough's enough. I don't want others to experience what I've experienced. So I really appreciate you for that, and admire you for not only owning and honoring, because I think also what you said was a really important thing of, in that moment you were radically honest and truthful with the point that you were at, and instead of thinking, oh well, I can't, you found a solution. And I think even someone hearing that is so empowering, because often it is like a free this or a free that, and then the next thing it's $3,000 or something, and people then feel like they kind of went for something and then they're lost again. But ultimately what I heard from what you said is, all is within, and that takes a very strong mind to really recognize and honor that. So thank you. And that's why you're on today, because the beautiful thing is we don't have to be the ones sitting there now. We have the luxury of like, particularly YouTube, access to so much information at our fingertips, which is amazing. So thank you so much for sharing all that. And even I'm sure your podcast, I'm sure there's so much wealth of wisdom and knowledge and insight that many men can access on a weekly basis. Did you say?
It's monthly. It's a monthly podcast.
Monthly, but still incredible. So thinking about that, and I love the way that you said it so creatively about your toolbox. Just thinking about that and the tools, it sounds like to me, and obviously please correct me if I'm not thinking it right, but it sounds like you took a little bit of everything and then realized, and I think this is super important, and I noticed as you being a past teacher, this is probably where this skill came as well, of not every lesson plan or curriculum, whatever, is always one fits all. Like, you have to be adaptable, personalized, and
absolutely,
I feel like that maybe supported you in you seeing like, oh well, that's really effective, I like that, and then creating what you've created now, which is incredible. So with that, what kind of tools could you give someone today that they could really, just, even if it's one little shift that they can make in their life today or their mindset?
I think there's so many to go with that, Shell. But what I always find to be a really, really simple, there's so many, but we'll start with this one. Usually, if somebody comes out with a statement like, "Oh, I don't think I'll be able to do that because of whatever," it's called a free why approach. So when a person comes out with an initial statement, they just kind of throw it out there without a lot of thought.
Yeah.
So then you go, why? And then they've got to think a bit deeper with that. And then you say, why again? And then they got to go a bit deeper. And by the time you said why the third time, they've actually started to tune in more to themselves in regards to their unconscious processing more than anything else. And that can be really insightful, because usually the first level is just noise. Yeah. And then when you actually, literally simple, just asking the person why, or the person reflecting themselves why, they can really get into that ulterior motive of what goes on below. So that's a really simple one. Another one which actually came up today in a conversation with somebody is, as human beings, we seem conditioned, particularly around language, to go, oh, I can't do that because of fear of whatever it is, finish the sentence. What's really interesting when you speak to them, you go, well, what is that? What is it? What is the fear about? And people can't answer it because there is no fear. Fear is but fear itself. So what you kind of dig into is, what's the worst consequence? So what we're talking about today was speaking to somebody about quitting smoking, and they were like, well, I tried to quit before, but I found it really hard because I had this fear of failure. But what is that? What's going to happen? Are people going to laugh at you? Are people going to say you're no good? They probably are, right? But are you going to die from that? Is it physically going to harm you? Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's somebody's opinion. And opinions are exactly what they are. They are opinions. It doesn't mean they're facts. And again, it's just switching that thought process around that. And if anything, I like doing things in free, Shell. If anything, the third one, what I would say is, really reflect upon when emotion comes up for you. Be curious. You'll be curious in the emotion. And what you'll find is, if you move into curiosity, it literally comes and goes, because that's what emotion does. It's almost like a little electric, like a static shock. The only reason why it doesn't seem like it does is because you engage with it. Yeah. And where that emotion comes from as well, Shel, it doesn't come from the head. It's a physical bodily response, because you're having a reaction to something because of an unconscious belief that you have. So if your body starts to react, just sit in it, be curious. And by doing that, you will see it pass, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, some three really simple but powerful techniques.
Well, just already in that, I don't know about anyone else listening, but just listening to that already, it's so powerful, like so simple, but so powerful. And I think this is why it's super important to set the intention and to have that that safety container, because I think back to adults and children and why that's very triggering. But if you're setting that intention and you are aware that this is what we're intentionally going to dive deeper and seek, it's a very different intention, isn't it? But again, it's not then about the why, it's about something actually much deeper, yes. Which we always know, it's never the initial, it's always a much deeper thing. I love that. And I know this is going a little bit off topic, but I feel like it's still linked, and I would love your take on this. But I actually was watching someone recently who said how he just felt like he was having very surface level conversations with his friends. He loved his friends, but he just had an idea and thought, you know what, no lads, what we're going to do is we're going to get together this Sunday, whoever's interested, and we're going to have some really deep conversation starters on the table. And he said he completely saw a different side to his friends. Yes. And he felt like they really bonded and they came together stronger. And I felt like that was relevant, because what you've said is so powerful. But I think if someone watches this and then goes kind of and applies that to someone else without their awareness or understanding, it can be also quite triggering, can't it?
Yeah, I guess it depends how well you know the other person, really. But
Yeah.
most people will have a relationship with somebody to try these things out of what I explained. But it's quite interesting what you've talked about there, and what you've described there is almost what takes place in a men's peer support group. A lot of men we wear masks. Women do to some degree, more so men. And literally, what I mean by a mask is it's almost like an emotional mask that we've picked up from between the ages of usually 5 to 7, where it starts, where we pick up these unconscious beliefs that aren't necessarily true. Like, man up, be a man, men don't cry, be the man of the house, go and be the breadwinner, blah, 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 all the rest of it. And that's where it sort of starts, where a man puts on a mask that they may seem hunky-dory on the outside, but when no one's watching and they take the mask off, it's usually a different story. And that can be the case. And if you get a group of fellas together, it can be quite superficial. But yet some of the guys are thinking, this is boring, this is not what I want to speak about, I've got this issue going on for me. And usually it just needs somebody just to be vulnerable. And that's an interesting word in itself. Vulnerability is actually a real strength. It's not a weakness from that degree. So if somebody's willing to do that in a group, it's incredible to see the depth of what men will go to. I'm not saying women don't, but men will, if given that word that you said before, a safe container. And very much in some of the men's groups that I do a couple of men's groups at different types of men. It's phenomenal the depth of conversation where it goes. Where in some of those groups there's been conversations around men who have been sectioned and they're sharing that. There's been a man in one of the groups who was sexually assaulted. He was able to bring that and talk about that. Wow. Men who have been in debt. These are big topics, but if you can create the right environment, it's incredible the depth that goes to. And what is quite interesting about men in how we're wired is we are natural problem solvers. That can be a gift and a curse, because sometimes if you're not in the right sort of space, you're not the best person to try and find a solution, if that makes sense. But anyway, generally it can be really helpful if you've got men in a group who are willing to be vulnerable. They can hold each other accountable, what you mentioned before, but also help people solve problems. And if anything, that goes back to what you said before. I really strongly believe that everyone in the world, to some degree, has a solution to pretty much any problem they will face. I really feel that is true. And I think, unfortunately, we're not always taught, particularly in our society, to look within yourself and trust your gut instinct to find the answer more than anything else. And hence that's why I think a lot of the issues in our country particularly exist, and hence, steering off slightly different topic, why unfortunately men and women, they take permanent solutions to temporary problems, which is take their own life. Do you know what I mean? And there's no judgment in that or anything like that, but that's a reality situation where a lot of individuals find themselves, where they feel or they believe there is no solution to that problem they have. And unfortunately, that obviously has knock-on effects.
And I obviously, not to go too off topic, but it kind of is still on topic of, I feel like a little bit, and again, I can only talk from my own experience of it, but I feel like there's almost been like a culture built around it as well, which is like, oh, well, that's what we do. We've had a hard day and we go and do that. Whereas I know, just as many people of traveling the world and seeing different ways, that's when I personally opened my mind up to different ways of dealing with things, which then had a kind of tumbleweed effect. Because I think often we don't believe in something wider or greater than ourselves, and we think that, oh, well, that's what you do, hard day, let's go do that. That's kind of like the way to socialize and to suppress or block it or enjoy, it's not always a negative, but this is definitely something that needs to not necessarily be changed, but just to be approached in a different way. Like, and I think that is the thing. And I had I had a podcast with someone recently who basically said that of often, whether we are conscious or unconscious, we don't want to sit with ourselves because we know it's all gonna come up, and that's, you know,
absolutely
another one.
Absolutely. And really what's interesting in that, because I was literally going to come into that, I think generally what I see in society is a lot of people don't necessarily have a moral compass. They don't necessarily have a spiritual foundation, whether that's Islam to Christianity to whatever is irrelevant. I think generally there are a lot of people who are lost. They may come into the new age way of doing things, but they just want to get off the faces. They don't actually want to put the principles into practice, which are there, and whichever sort of religion or way of being takes your fancy, they usually always have similarities. And what they drill down into is what you're referring to here is personal accountability and personal responsibility. Because that's where a lot of them are at. And if you don't put in place personal accountability, personal responsibility, then you kind of make excuses for your behaviour, and it's always somebody else's fault. And and it's okay to go and do whatever you want to do, because remember, you're a free spirit and a free soul, which is not quite what the original meaning of free spirit is. No, but that's the extreme what people go to. They go, I can freely choose what I want to do. But what about the it has on other people? You know what I mean? And then you call the prune or prude, you know what I mean? Or restricting somebody else's freedom. But the society can only operate in a healthy way if there are boundaries in place and personal responsibility and personal accountability. And I think, particularly coming to mental health, I think some people aren't stupid. They know they've got issues around their mental health. A lot of the time, they don't want to address it because it's personal accountability and responsibility. It's not easy going, excuse me, Mr. Skeleton, I've locked you in there for years on end, but I'm just going to open the door and invite you to the table, because that's what you're doing. But unfortunately, what happens is Mr. Skeleton will pop out at the times where you don't want him to, which happens, and that can be even more destructive. Because whether we like it or not, we can't lie to ourselves, we can't hide from ourselves. And no matter how fast we run, our shadow will always catch us.
Absolutely.
Regardless of anything else.
And I think even it went for a second then, but it's just based on what you just shared then. That was it. And I think even sometimes, whether it's, you know, not the person, but you know, when there's kind of like, oh, when she whatever, she's like this. I think people like to use things as an excuse for behaviors as well. Of like, oh, she's so sweet normally, but she not insert whatever you want to insert. She's like, you know, a different woman, and it's like that in itself, it says a lot.
It massively does, Shel. And again, that comes back to a culture issue where from a young age we are told that other people or situations or events cause our emotional reactions. We're almost ingrained from a young age. And you know, and being a parent myself, it's sometimes I got to be mindful of how I'm putting that across. That you know, my son, you've upset Daddy because you've not done that. Well, actually, no, Daddy's upset himself because Daddy's got expectations. And Daddy's put in place, and it's Daddy's fault. You're an 8-year-old kid who probably just wants to do his own thing and play around and is testing the boundaries, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just a society now, we talk again back to the power of language, where we devoid responsibility, even of our own emotions, onto somebody else. You know, I hear it a lot of the time, you know, she made me do this, or he said this, and that's why I did this. It's like, well, you know, these people aren't picking your arm up and forcing things into your mouth.
Exactly.
You know, you are the person who is, you know, who is doing that. You know, or you made me drink. No, you picked up the drink yourself.
Exactly.
and put it in your mouth. And one that which again comes into to this sphere of conversation, particularly comes up a lot in mental health, where how could I ever forgive that person what they've done for me? It's like, okay, well, why don't you go to Aldi or Lidl? By all means, please don't do this, people, when I'm listening to you. I'm using it as an example, a scenario. By the way, just want to put that in disclaimer in there.
Thank you.
Aldi or Lidl, buy a bottle of bleach, drink it, ring up the person and go, can you feel the pain? Because that's what you're doing to yourself. Sometimes the person, A, doesn't care, or B, is probably forgotten. But yet you're the one keeping yourself in that pain and that suffering by holding on to it. And the irony of how we've been taught, forgiveness has nothing at all to do with the other person. It's about you. It's forgiving yourself. Which comes back to a point you said before, whether you like it or not, there are two people in every situation that have an involvement in a situation. So unless you're a child who struggles to have agency, you've taken a role in that situation to unfold in the first place, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. And that can be difficult to sit in, but it's true. There is a lot of truth in that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things that I've definitely found. And, of course, it's not always easy facing the mirror, but the moment you really radically take a long, hard look at yourself, and all around you there's clues in jokes people might say, you're so cynical, or these jokes that people are saying things for a reason, and it's not always easy to face them, but the moment you do, and I'm sure you can say this as well, you will feel so free. Because the moment you radically accept you fully at the point you're at, who you are, no one has anything over you. Because you free yourself. The moment you feel this is something you have to hide, or and it's not saying now it's easy, just let everything out. I'm sure even that discussion with that incredible man who opened up about something very traumatic that happened to him. This is why we have these incredible offerings like what you do, where men's group, the actual think beyond this. This is a place you can go to where there are like-minded men in a safe container that you are able to express yourself, or simply listen, because even by listening you can have so much transformation and healing. So
absolutely, and that's really important as well. I think generally as well, and again I think this part of society as well, we are taught to talk, but are we actually taught to actually listen? And they've not listened properly. And I think a lot of that comes down to this whole idea of the uncomfortableness of silence. I think silence is really powerful, and yet a lot of people find it extremely uncomfortable and will do anything to avoid being in that. And also that can come out in conversations where someone will be talking and the other person has to interrupt because they can't deal with just sitting and listening. Because as you start to listen, to that other person, you're actually tuning into yourself as well. And that can be hard to hold yourself in that place. But that's the reality of what it is from that degree.
Wow, Joe, I know we've not even touched on half of the incredible knowledge progression, everything that you now are fully, and of course everything is a journey still, no one is perfect, but embodying. I think it's incredible what you're doing. I know there's so many people that whether they are a male or someone thinking this will be good for a male, or just listening for insight and knowledge and wisdom. I know that there's many people, and I can see your scan me, and that will definitely be wanting to reach out.
Yes.
Reach out to you. I think it's amazing what you're doing. Thank you so much. And I know that even in seeing what you're doing, we want a tumbleweed effect. We want more of this. There's enough abundance for everybody. And just thinking a little bit more global, thinking about the audience, is it mainly in person, or do you do online as well?
Everything around Rewired For Men, it's delivered online. And that's
Amazing.
because it's everybody and anybody in the world from that degree. That's what it's all about. But also what I would say is, yes, I predominantly aim at working with men, but I work with women as well. I'm not anti-woman. I think it's really important to say it, because I have some women saying, well, you don't work with us. Well, actually, I do. But someone once said to me, if you say you work with everybody, you get nobody from that degree as well. Do you know what I mean? So.
Well, that's why I was trying to say it in a creative way, but thank you so much for addressing that, because also I'd just because I want to be mindful of your time, but women sat around with women wondering about men is not really finding the mindset and the way to help a man. Well, not help, but understand a man more. Similarly, the other way round. So of course, like it's all interlinked. Like the mind is the mind, and I appreciate you really highlighting that, because I think some people are very literal in like Rewired for Men. It rewired anyone.
Absolutely, Shel. And if anything, if someone scans the QR code here, what that will take you to is almost like a free gift, which is what it is, that you can download. And it helps men and women gain a greater understanding of where a man is at, and to some degree a woman as well, because it can apply both ways. And it brings in more talking about how our unconscious beliefs are impacted from being on a running machine or in comfort zone cage, as I call it, and how that comes out in different areas of our life, of money, work, and relationships. And some lovely little tips, like what I talked about today, where you can just put it into practice to help with a bit of a mind shift. So that's all it needs. It's only small little changes to make a big difference.
Oh, Joel, it's been an absolute pleasure. Just one last thing before you go. I always ask my guests, what's one thing just off the top of your head that you would like to tell someone listening right now that you feel like they would really benefit from hearing?
I think with anything, what I would say is, wherever you're at, no matter what you have done, there's always a way forwards. There's always somebody there who is willing to listen, or like you said, you're at the edge of finding a solution through the internet or spirit or whatever. If you only give yourself the chance and opportunity, at the end of the day, if you don't ask, you don't get.
I love that. I love that so much. Thank you so much, Joel. I think you're incredible, and I love all that you're doing, and I'm definitely going to go and watch your podcast now.
Thank you very much, Shel. It's been a pleasure. And the same to you. Is, as they say, like-minded souls recognize each other. So yeah,
Absolutely.
same to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.